urging action, claiming cleanup efforts along the notoriously polluted Gowanus Canal aren't working fast enough.
The Gowanus neighborhood, located in Brooklyn and accessible by the F and G trains, has undergone a significant transformation in recent years. Once an industrial hub, it is now home to trendy bars, art spaces, and new developments. As the neighborhood becomes increasingly desirable, rents have risen, with a one-bedroom apartment ranging from $3,500 to $4,200 per month. At the heart of the neighborhood lies the infamous Gowanus Canal, a 1.8-mile stretch of water running under 7 bridges before flowing into the East River. Despite its ongoing transformation, the canal is a source of concern due to toxic fumes like coal tar vapors that can seep into buildings nearby. Though many new residents are drawn to the growing number of affordable housing units being built, may not fully grasp the health risks posed by the canal's pollution. In a 2024 New York Curbed article, a local real estate agent stated that he was usually the one to bring up the toxicity being found in the area, and that hardly anyone is curious enough to ask about it. So what is really happening in this neighborhood that so many people are overlooking? Salvatore Buddy Scotto was one of the first to champion the cleanup of what is now considered one of the nation's most contaminated waterways. Born in 1928, he grew up in the Italian-American neighborhood Carroll Gardens, located only a few blocks from the Gowanus Canal. By the 1950s, Gowanus's industrial decline worsened and factory doors closed. Damage caused by the years of using the canal as a toxic waste dump was irreversible. At that point, the canal stench could reach beyond the neighborhood for blocks. But Scotto saw potential where others saw neglect, and in the 1970s, he began advocating for the canal's transformation into the Venice of Brooklyn. Scotto founded the Gowanus Canal Community Development Corporation. Through the 1980s, Scotto's efforts started showing results. His work in the 1990s, including organizing boat tours and events, drew attention from politicians and community leaders, securing more support for cleanup efforts. In 2004, Friends and residents of Greater Gowanus formed to advocate for a thorough cleanup and to oppose unsafe development in the area, ultimately becoming instrumental in securing the canal's Superfund designation. However, this merely scratched the surface of the ongoing movement. Speaking is a founder of Frog and a major player in the movement, Margaret Maginest, who moved to Gowanus in 1984 to seek out an apartment that would accommodate her large artwork.
The canal smelled bad, the neighborhood smelled bad, in the summer it was just horrendous. What happened to me then was that at some point our building became curious about the environment around us. So we ordered a toxicity report. I was given a call right away by Walter Hang from Toxic Targeting. He told me, did you know that there was a former MGP site, that's coal gasification site, and that its residue is coal tar, and the coal tar migrates, and it's really bad. It's cancer causing. And he said to me, you got to get your community going. What had happened was there had been a neighborhood meeting, and then I had a potluck dinner after we did some action against the demolition of a building that they wanted to replace with a tall apartment building. We didn't think that was appropriate. So we won that, and I celebrated. We celebrated. I had a potluck in my loft, and at the potluck, which was really well attended also by someone who was running for office for the Green Party. Anyway, I said, let's form a group. And then we formed Friends and Residents of Greater Gowanus Frog, and we started getting active about getting the canal cleaned up. We started talking to our legal representatives. We tried to bring greater awareness about the canal, because it was the focus of gentrification. People just wanted to build. They called it the Little Venice, but we knew it was toxic. To make a long story short, Friends and Residents of Greater Gowanus spearheaded this Superfund campaign. It's the largest letter writing campaign in EPA history. But what was interesting was that the second that we created a real environmental group, for Friends and Residents Greater Gowanus, the opposition, which is the developers who don't care about the environment, created an organization called the Gowanus Conservancy to co-opt the environmental aspect for their greenwashing.
Greenwashing is the practice of making false or misleading statements about a product, service, or a company's environmental impact. The goal is to deceive consumers into believing that a company is doing more to protect the environment than it actually is. Gowanus Canal Conservancy is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the environmental restoration and sustainable development of the Gowanus Canal and its surroundings, engaging the local community through educational programs and volunteer initiatives. Here's your website, featuring a video that promises a greener future.
Our city has actually been talking a lot about Parks Without Borders, a network of parks that is much more than the sum of each individual space. They're a perfect place for salt marsh restoration as well as potential public access. Uncovering these creeks and allowing them to flow across land, to invest in them, to make them public spaces. What we're trying to do with the Gowanus Lowlands is develop a design language and priorities for those esplanades that really make them for the larger community.
This video was posted 6 years ago, and since then there has been the constant sound of construction surrounding the canal. Let's see what they've achieved and constructed so far. There were at least 18 newly constructed buildings and only 3 public green spaces. Unfortunately, one of these spaces is already flooding and it's not even open yet.
The Gowanus Conservancy. You get a lot of the donations, and the Conservancy, it's a real slick operation. They work with the city, with the developers. They're getting funded also by potential responsible parties like the National Grid. If you're an agency that is working for the environment, that should be your only concern. The only people who are unpaid, who are working with no other agenda, was Frog, and then Frog turned in the members, all the members are now also in Voice of Gowanus. Like I said, we have no other agenda. It's kind of like the price you pay for living on the planet. It's like you kind of have to take care of your own little corner of it as best as you can.
With new rezoning plans introduced by New York City officials, the advocacy work broadened, eventually transforming into a more expansive coalition known as Voice of Gowanus. Voice of Gowanus has been highly effective at mobilizing the community. They've organized public events, including a concert at Vegan Cafe and music venue Public Records. The fundraiser featured well-known artists like Yo La Tengo and Mark Rebo. The group also maintains a strong presence at public forums, ensuring attendees are informed about the environmental risks associated with living near the Gowanus Canal. Beyond raising awareness, Voice of Gowanus actively investigates both environmental and legal matters. They explore the toxicity of the canal and surrounding land, as well as the legal frameworks meant to protect New Yorkers, ensuring that the government is upholding its responsibilities. As they uncover more information, they make sure the neighborhood stays updated. The new developments in the area are also a top focus for the group. The main concern is that the sites being built on aren't being cleaned up thoroughly, potentially endangering the soon-to-be residents. The majority of the land was previously industrial buildings. At some of these sites, toxins reach 150 feet deep into the ground, but the state is only calling for developers to clean less than the top 8 feet of contaminated soil. Another example, the Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC, representatives have said National Grid is refusing to do any more remediation at a particular toxic site that leaks coal tar into the canal. Seth Hillinger is a member of Voice of Gowanus who has recently been representing the group in the news media. He's also a dad raising his family in the neighborhood.
I just started to voice my opinions by myself. The members of Voice of Gowanus, were seeing my social media stuff, and they just said, "Hey, would you like to join our group?"
Seth's initial interest in the canal was sparked by the novel Gowanus, Brooklyn's Curious Canal, written by Joseph Alexiou. Here, he can be seen at a DEC convention, unleashing his furious passion on a very unfortunate Sean Mahar. The event had deviated from the usual public forum format, where attendees would ask questions one by one to a central figure. Instead, featured a dozen or so booths scattered around a school gym, leading to frustration and an overall sense of ineffectiveness.
You're choosing to represent the DEC in a way that obfuscates the truth. Are you calling me an asshole? Are you calling me an asshole? Well, then why are you talking to me like I'm an asshole? I don't believe I am.
Start having a real meeting.
And 50 feet of coal tar under this neighborhood that is releasing gas into the
Yes.
of our children.
We know that sea levels are going to rise, and we have to make sure that when they do rise, that they're not going to cause damage that's avoidable if we did things properly now. So in a way, it's a race against the developers who want to just rush in and kind of do like a quick fix. It doesn't feel like the whole city is thinking about climate preparedness as a whole. So my vision is really not just for the Gowanus, but for the whole city to have more of a comprehensive plan to protect people from in the future.
The people who are already living here, they are dealing with the awakening. They are dealing with just finding out about toxic plumes going under their homes. If there's one thing, just listen to us. Help yourself. Not just help us, help yourself. We're doing this for you in the community. It's your health.
So what's been done since the Gowanus Canal was designated a Superfund site in 2010? The EPA's 2013 plan involves dredging 581,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment, capping the canal bed with layers to prevent recontamination, and constructing 2 combined sewer overflow retention tanks to manage sewage during storms. The plan also includes restoring turning basins and addressing ongoing contamination sources. However, delays in constructing the CSO tanks, crucial for preventing raw sewage overflow, have created setbacks. Voice of Gowanus successfully pushed the EPA to investigate these delays, revealing that the tanks are over 6 years behind schedule, with costs surging to more than $1 billion. The delay allowed sewage to recontaminate previously dredged areas. In 2021, at the Royal Palm Shuffleboard Club, the DEC discovered dangerously high levels of trichloroethylene, or TCE, a cancer-causing solvent, with indoor air levels 22 times above safe limits. Despite this, the venue remained open, and the public wasn't informed until 2 years later. The agency has since admitted it could have done a better job alerting the public. The public became aware of the issue at the Royal Palm Shuffleboard Club only thanks to Voice of Gowanus and the environmental database firm Toxic Targeting, who found the data buried in dense technical documents on the DEC's website.
That really was like a shocking, crazy thing that the state knew that there were toxic gases going into this building, and they didn't close the doors. They didn't warn people, hey, if you're pregnant or if you're a cancer survivor, like maybe you don't want to go into these places.
The venue had trichloroethylene at 43 micrograms per cubic meter in the indoor air, while the allowable amount is 2. The contamination was linked to polluted soil, and the fumes detected aren't something to be taken lightly.
I'm on the top floor, and I have grave concerns. I had colon cancer. No cancer in my family, and there have been other cancers in my building. And I've spoken to other people in the neighborhood who tell me about buildings where, neighbors, families that have had cancer. I was interviewed by a newspaper reporter, and whose family lived down the street on Nevins, and they don't live there anymore, but, his grandmother died of cancer. His mother now has cancer. I'm not being alarmist. I'm just being direct.
The situation at Royal Palms was able to shift the dialogue in Voice of Gowanus' favor. When trusted news sources like Gothamist and WNYC posted about the toxic fumes, it was hard to not take the issue seriously.
As a result, the state couldn't kind of like hide behind the facts because it was their own data that we used against them.
Meanwhile, down the block at 543 Union Street, another historic building faced its own contamination issues. Tests in early 2023 revealed TCE levels 450 times above the state's limits, prompting immediate action from the DEC and EPA. Even scarier, in a school, agencies found some cancerous vapors in the air at PS 372, the children's school, and they are experiencing emergency mitigation. The state plans to install equipment to remove the harmful fumes at the school by early 2025. As the story of Gowanus unfolds, one thing is for certain. The fight for a cleaner, healthier environment is far from over, and the true cost of late reaction and shortcuts will only be measured in time.